now we're going to go on to the second part of this. So I want to show you another process related to the slides we provided, and some of you might want to work with builds that represent different aspects of a life also. So what I'm going to suggest is that you take a fresh piece of drawing paper now and make a large circle and divide it into 3 parts. Looks like a pie with 3 pieces. And then on the outside of the circle, label the first segment physical, the second segment emotional, and the third segment intellectual creative. And then each slide has questions to help you think about these aspects of you, and you can fill in some responses in each segment of the pie. So here are the physical questions. How well are you caring for the only body you've got? How much do you love and accept your body? And what do you do to keep yourself healthy? And this can include anything here at Whole Brain Health or in Second Life that you do, as well as in your actual physical life. All right, so those are the physical ones. Emotional. Do you feel lovingly connected to the people in your life, or do you feel isolated, resistant, or sullen most of the time? Are your relations with others flowing, static, or charged? Do you get hooked and identify with your misery? Can you get over it fairly quickly? Do you feel whole and at peace within yourself and others? Now, these are sort of prompting questions, but you can actually take off on them and see what occurs to you as you try to make sense of the responses in your own way, in your own life. Now, the intellectual creative questions. How much of your mind's capacity are you using? How much playing, inventing, imagining do you do? And that's really what we're doing today. Are you in a rut at work, or are you extending your boundaries? And even for those of you who are totally retired, you can think of, what is your work now? What are your objectives? What are the things that you're trying to do in your life right now to give it purpose or meaning? Are you extending your boundaries, or are you working within a scope that has great meaning for you that you want to stay focused on? What tires you out in terms of thinking about stuff or trying to create stuff? So those questions kind of just give you some prompts. So take a minute and just write down some responses to those questions. Any of these can be also worked with symbolically. For instance, when I have people do symbolic builds, I might ask them or you to focus on a current feeling state, physical, emotional, however, and then to make a symbolic representation of it with the building tools that are here in this world. When I actually do my symbolic modeling workshops, I lead people or guide them through ways of working with their objects that help them find meaning through it. For now, you can just jot down a few things in each of these 3 pie pieces. I'm not going to ask you to reveal the content of what you've written, but comment on this process of making something that you can actually visually see and then filling in this kind of information and how that might help you in moving forward in thinking about, what do I want to pay more attention to here? You might find, for instance, that some of these segments are taken care of very well by you, are very easy for you, and others not so much, are a challenge. For instance, I know how much exercise is important for me, and I do stretching kinds of things for my upper and lower body, but I don't get enough aerobic exercise. I don't take the time sometimes to get out there and walk when I'm on the screen doing things that are fascinating me. So that is a challenge for me, and I'm working on it. So that's something that I would write in the physical part of my pie. All right, so just in the few minutes that we have left for the formal discussion, let me just hear what some of your thoughts are about this process as a way of kind of symbolically representing different aspects of your being. It's a good way to identify specifics in 3 important areas of my personal life, okay?
I like the pie visual because I tend to compartmentalize things in my brain. And so this worked really well for me. And I could see me breaking each of the 3 areas into even more pieces. So that's it for me.
Absolutely. Like I bunched intellectual and creative together, but you could break these down in different ways. And let me see. I think having many different ways to view myself is always helpful. It keeps me aware and focused. And I'm also thinking of how time management can work with the circle, how to balance the 3 regions. Terrific thought. It's a challenge, I think, because it's a way of admitting to yourself certain things that you tend to avoid thinking about. Yes. In my case, for example, that I don't pay that much attention to my physical condition. Mm-hmm. Yes, when you have it right in front of you, you can't really avoid looking at what it is you do, either to move something forward or to resist it. The questions are good ways to focus on now when your mind wanders toward negativity. Very good point. Expanding beyond what we normally do is also really important. Yeah. Yes, and particularly in terms of the focus of this conference, in our aging years, it is very important. How do we make sure that we are as alive as possible every minute that we're awake here? And so this pie is also another way to do that, to say, all right, here's something that I need and want to focus on. In a difficult position, alone, housebound, physically unable to do much in real life, but using poetry as catharsis and art to stretch myself. I'm so glad that you mentioned poetry and art. And, I do music, I compose. Any kind of creative act of manifesting what's internal to the outside, and then even possibly sharing it with other people in a relational way, is a very good way to feel our aliveness as we age. Saying in the intellectual region, I would add, have I done enough reading this week, whether poetry or fiction or nonfiction? Positive thing. Yes, it's a growth component for sure. I'd like also, just in terms of wrapping up the formal part of this, for you to say something about ideas you've gotten from listening to your aging compadres. There's been a lot of creative sharing in this session, which I'm thrilled about. And to make any comments you would like to the group as a whole about this experience and things that you may be taking away from it. Yes, a lot of creativity. Appreciate the openness with which everyone shared their processes. Absolutely. We're all blessed by that because we learn so much. I am a very great component, as you can probably tell, of discovery learning. I don't particularly like to lecture to people. I like people to discover things by doing stuff. And in fact, for adults, and I would say particularly for aging adults, the learning comes by doing, not by just being passively receptive. That's why Second Life, and particularly our whole brain health world here, is so valuable, because people can interact and actually try things and do things and see what comes out of that for them. Yes. I recently discovered that I'm on the autism spectrum, so socializing and even understanding myself and others has always been a problem. But at least I know now, and it's easier in SL. You're not alone. Even in this group, you are not alone with that. Cats, I'd like you to just tell people a little bit about what else they can do with us if they're interested in this way of exploring.
We have an upcoming fun version of SymMod called the Improv coming up on August 19th at 1 p.m. SL time. We also have a Visions of Self coming up soon, which is more personal and explores how we see our inner selves. We will have upcoming theater programs as well and other workshops. Also, Marley offers SymMod training in which you can get practice in helping others with this approach and learn how to help guide them through their journey without trying to interpret. If you're interested in taking part in an upcoming Visions of Self, please contact me at slcatseye2@gmail.com. I'd like to promote Marley's Visions of Self and SymMod training events. I worked with Katz, who's been in ongoing SymMod training with Marley, and I think it's a very good tool for exploring and thinking about, in a 3D way, who you are and how you relate to things. And if you haven't done it, Marley has developed this approach using models from experiential psychologies, which gets down to the nuts and bolts of what makes us who we are. And I recommend it for anyone. It's a challenge, I think, for everyone. I learned a lot. The inspiration I received from Katz working with her when we weren't in class was fantastic. All I can say is, the next symbolic modeling event that Marley does, you may want to attend, because this kind of dialogue that you develop, you learn to ask questions. You don't pinpoint people. You just learn to ask questions to help the person identify things about themselves.
Okay, I want to make a distinction between experiencing this as a client, which is what you've done today, which you can do more in a workshop that I call Visions of Self. So Visions of Self asks participants to create a self-portrait that symbolizes some aspect of themselves, either with an abstract drawing or by manipulating a photo or by doing a build, and then you get to explore them through being guided. The training is for people who work with people here, who lead groups, who teach, who do counseling or whatever. And I offer training now one person at a time or teams of people who work together on projects, who think that it might be useful to have this way of gathering data for people who are wanting to learn more about their own projects or their own feeling states, their values, decisions they need to make, and so on. And in order to find out more about how you can be involved with this or when these things will happen, you can contact Cat's Eye Tenon. I turned over the mistress of ceremonies job to Katz to do the improv session we do where artists and musicians do symbolic riffs to each other's creations. Really, really fun. So I hope that some of you will come to that. Please join either WBH or join my group, Octagon Creative Exploration, to get notices about any of these programs that we're doing. As you develop your symbolic model for your life trajectory, send them to Fran, and we're going to make some kind of exhibit. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for being here.